All right, we should be live, everybody. Hopefully, audio is coming in well. Hi, I'm Peter, creator and lead designer of Tales from Elsewhere. If you're here watching this, you probably know who I am. And this evening, we have another one of these really fun designer interviews. I've got a good friend of mine, Gary, here to talk about All Mice Die, his role playing game, as well as the crowdfunding campaign for what is a capsule experience of the full game. We're going to dig into the details of this system, the idea of building systems with West Marches in mind, that structure of play, and talk about anthro games and mice and so forth. So, should be a really fun conversation. So, Gary, why don't you just give us a really brief description of yourself as a game designer and RPG nerd like the rest of us, and tell us a little bit about your game.
Yeah, so hey there, I'm Permanent DM, the creator of the game All Mice Die, and I've been running games for a very long time. So I ran my first session of D&D back when it was we were running AD&D stuff in 1999, and I've done a lot of work on games before. I've done a lot of work on adventure designs, and this is my first full product of a game that I'm trying to release to the public. Although I have done a lot of modular stuff and game design things that have just been for my table. But this one has been something different, and I've noticed sort of a niche that I don't think is being properly filled. And going, oh, I think these are some ideas and these are some processes that even if you're not someone who likes mice, you might be able to pick up this thing and go, oh, I see why he's done this, or this. I'm going to do my own version of that now that I can see sort of the tools that we have under the hood, which is how I consume a lot of game systems myself. And so I want to kind of put that out there into the world.
Yeah, and what I always found really great talking to you about before, as we've talked many, many times, is you have a ton of experience with organized play. So this is more than just you're going to show up with your 3 to 5 buddies and play a session every once in a while. You have a ton of experience, not only with West March's play, but like D&D organized play as well, right? You want to like tell us briefly about some of that experience?
Yeah, so tons of experience with running games for Living Forgotten Realms, which was the 4th edition organized play thing. I was able to write them. I'm credited on a couple of adventures as a writer, and also being able to just run a very large quantity of those adventures. And I ran a ton of 5th edition D&D adventures for the D&D Adventures League when it first came out. And I liked organizing. I helped set up adventures leagues. So like the Southeast Adventure League, I was able to help set up. The one for like 2 of the local ones I was able to help set up, and they're still going now.
That's awesome.
And there is this sort of, the community element of these things. If it's done well, it can sort of weather whatever systems, whatever nonsense is happening. Like if we're a good group of friends, we can play whatever games, and that scales up as well, right? If it's a good community, it's going to be able to do all kinds of stuff and be able to kind of go cross systems. And then as far as West Marches in particular is concerned, I've been in a bunch of different games, anything from what I consider to be a small campaign of about 40 people up to
small.
a small campaign for West Marches, right, of about 40 people, up to a bigger campaign where we had 350 players and like 30 something DMs. I've been in a lot of these things that sometimes get called mega games or living games or West Marches games. There's all these different sort of terminologies that get used, and they can mean somewhat specific things, but there's a lot of muddying the waters because a lot of it's after the fact, which is one of the reasons that I'm working on that in a game design perspective. Is I want to build the game on those premises and then go up, rather than having these ideas and then trying to retrofit a system to work for it and be like, oh, this is what I need to change from this other stuff to convert it to work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's just
with 5th edition Adventure League, there's a lot of hurdles that you actually had to utilize to make that structured play work. And people still gamed the system all the time, and there was a lot of problems that would still come up in large form Adventure League. I've had a ton of experience mostly as a player in Adventure League, as that was one of the main ways I got to play D&D was through Adventure League. And it offered a ton of really unique experiences, right? That it's not just, oh, you can play with anybody. It's like, no, you could go to events where they have in-person games with 25 tables of players.
Yeah.
Right? All together doing an epic or something like that. And it's really there's something that's special about that community-driven RPG approach, apart from the ease of finding a table, right? Yeah. It's great. You can always find a table to play, and there's no pressure. But it's actually this meta narrative, like this community aspect, that I think is super cool about organized play. And we're talking a lot about organized play here, by the way, dear viewer. To make sure you understand, like, Gary is not talking in theory about organized play. Very like firsthand experience about what it is to actually run large scale games.
When we got out of when I basically stopped running fifth edition, someone kind of brought it up to me that like I'd run a fifth edition for so many players, so I'd been in it so many different players in so many different tables, and we ran the numbers and realized that I'd run fourth edition D&D and fifth edition D&D for about 4,000 to 5,000 players, and that meant that then some of that was, hey, I had like a 7-year long campaign with the same group where we did just play as the 5-man band, but I'd run for tons and tons of different people, so I'd seen just sort of the volume of stuff, and I get to see, oh well, I've seen that kind of problem player, but it's not. It's problem community member.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are actually an issue. And then when I got into West March's play, we got into living play, and we got to kind of build up this bigger community stuff, building the infrastructure to make that work. Organized play has an infrastructure built into it. If you look at the beginning of any of the modules, it'll say like, here's all the organized play rules. Mm-hmm. And building those up for a good West Marches game, for a lot of people, it's one of the barriers to entry, because doing it well requires a lot of groundwork, because none of the systems really do it for you. A lot of people will go, oh, I'm not going to spend hours and hours. I'm not going to make a 60-page document on top of whatever else is going on about how we can communicate with one another. That is insanity. Yeah. And then they will they'll hit those problems that 60-page document is designed to solve, and basically grind into it, have people that bounce off the system, people get upset about these things, and
it can turn away new GMs that may want to get involved, but they don't want to have to read an additional rule book, basically, in addition to the game system. Yeah, I get
exactly.
It. Yeah, that makes sense. And so we are, just segue, do a little segue here. So right now, Gary has a product that is kickstarted. It's successfully funded today, in the first day, which is super awesome. There is a link in the description of this video. There's a link in my Discord server for those that came here from there. It is Magic Reborn All Mice Die TTRPG Quick Start, and I'll put it up on screen here. Let's switch. So, and this is the part of the video where I try to pitch somebody else's product as best I can. And let me know if I said anything inaccurate.
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious to see how other people perceive it.
Okay, so what this is an adventure packet. It is listed as a quick start. Now, it is an adventure, pre-gens, rules, all presented in a very high quality product. It's not just like somebody throwing some stuff together in Microsoft Word and then trying to get it funded. This is, and I'll scroll down because there's there is artwork, there are maps, there are diagrams. This small concept layout on the page is a good indicator of the quality of what this is. So this could be considered what some might say a capsule game at this stage. It is a single contained experience that is a fully playable game. It's not particularly long. What the total page count's like 60 pages, maybe at most, something like that.
So it's 48 pages that are bound, and then it includes about another 15 pages worth of handouts.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, very small, but it contains the core rules of this game that will have its own larger product down the road. But this is to allow people to play it, and the funding is to make it this high quality premium product that is a product unto itself, right? Even if this future game didn't exist, this is a complete game experience that you could play over multiple sessions in and of itself. And it is a game about mice, but not in a cute way as much as in more of a Secret of Nim, Mouse Ritter. There are horror elements to it. There's violence, there's death. It's called All Mice Die after all. So It is not a cozy game that it is attempting to be. It is a game of action and death and danger. Was that a fair pitch of your
Yeah.
game?
The only thing that I would add, and
Yeah,
this is
please
something
amend.
that I do think is important for people to kind of understand, is that this is the first piece of a process. And anyone that pledges, anyone who backs at this level, not only do you get the game that you can run on its own, but you get an invite to play with me. I'm going to run a West Marches campaign at the end of the summer, and if you pledge, you get an invite to that campaign. And you can play and see, do I actually enjoy this system? And when you play at the end of the summer, you're not just playing with the quick start, although I will run quick start games at the end of the summer. You get to play with the full rules, which are already written. They're already done. They're just not presented in a way that looks pretty and nice and presentable. They're presented in the way that I can read them while I run. But just publishing the DM's scrolls as notes is not going to be a good product. So
yeah, well, we all know, a lot of people in the chat are indie designers. We're both indie designers. You know, you're always just working in some garbage-looking Google sheet for a while, and the game is fully playable like that for sometimes years. But that's not the kind of thing we usually present to the public. I totally get it. And this is just another example of, we're not talking about a product as an idea. Right. You know, Gary hasn't, it's not the idea of a game he has. He has a game. The game is playable. I know Gary. Gary's been working super hard on this for a long time. It is not a theoretical product. And that's why, for example, you know, you'd be playing this game before even your hard copies arrive. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, because the game is ready to be played right now, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said it was in the summer, end of summer was when the West Marches
began?
Yeah,
end of summer is when we're going to try to get it running. My goal is, when we get back from Gen Con, and we're going to Gen Con, to be able to say, okay, let's hit the ground running. We'll do a lot of like the pre-game prepping stuff, making characters, making everyone's houses, making sure people understand kind of the vibe of the game first, and then we'll sort of hit go when we get back from Gen Con.
Yeah, because this is something that isn't talked about a lot on this Kickstarter's page, because it's not part of the adventure product. But this game is designed for not just a West Marches or these sort of open play, but also for like legacy play, where a campaign could be going indefinitely, even if your characters die, because the story is not just this awesome looking mouse with the mace axe thing. It's not just that dude, right? It's a story of that dude and that dude's progeny, like his house, and who the legacy he leaves behind, and their choices then continue, and the choices of the previous character matter. And so there's this whole system that's built into long form extended play in that way, even if the life of this one mouse may not be that long, right? Do you want to maybe unpack a little bit more about the houses and how that works? Because I think it's cool.
Yeah. So for one thing that I would talk to people about is, you know, when I call this game OSR inspired, and the early level play is very OSR feeling, old school Renaissance. Your characters do not want to get to a fight. Getting into a fight is very risky. You don't get experience from killing monsters. You get experience from getting the goods and getting home, getting wealth back to your family. And so that idea kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. But the other piece to it is that if you play with people who've played D&D 2nd edition, OSR play in systems that are very deadly, one of the things that comes up a whole lot is this desire to keep some part of that character for your next character, right? Your level 2 thief dives, and you're like, oh man, I have to re-roll, but I really want I want another thief. And this is his brother that just happened to be here. We just not talk about it.
Yeah, it's Larry. First one was Gary. Now it's Larry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this system says, no, that is what's going on. That other character is your brother or your cousin or your uncle, or what, it is a noble family. And so you're not playing as like Jaime Lannister. You're playing as all of the Lannisters. And one of the things that is sort of brain breaking for some people when they start to play is they go, oh, I don't want to play that. I don't want to play a game where a character can die immediately because I can't get invested. I can't build. I can't have progression. But then I tell them that, well, in this game, your actual character cannot die. because your character isn't an individual mouse. Your character is the house.
Right.
So House Lannister always has more Lannisters to field.
To throw into the meat grinder. So
right.
Yeah.
You know, you always have random, singers who will pop in and do a cameo, and they'll be there and everybody's fine. Your house, your character is immortal. There will always be more mice, but the individuals in that house will all build up. And whenever you level up in the game, because it is a game with classes and levels, when you do level up, your house keeps that influence. Your house keeps that notoriety of, oh, these are the deeds done by a mouse of my house. And you can use that to do things in the game, right? So you get to keep some pieces of the characters that you do lose, if and when you do lose characters. And the sort of mentality changes to management of a family rather than management of an individual. And one little thing I did want to hit on, you talked about like really long extended play. And we talked a little bit about how do we make this like West Marches? What does it mean?
Yeah.
If you play in a West Marches game or in a living game, like Adventures League, for any length of time, you will get to a time where people realize the rules that we had set up, for whatever reason, we've played for a little while, they don't work great, and we have these solutions to the rules. We have these fixes. We don't really have a good way to implement them. And so what they do is they make a season. They say, all right, this is season 1, this is season 2, this is season 3, and then they change the rules in the seasons. That is explicitly part of this game. It's explicitly part of the world where all mice know magic dies every winter and is reborn, transformed in the spring. What that means for the person running the game is that your players expect for the rules to change. So when you need to fix something, you've got like a time for your patch notes, right? You know exactly when I'm going to do that.
Yeah, and that ties in with seasonal play for things like organized play, West Marches, and so forth, where you literally could have each of the seasons of a year, right? Winter comes and the players will all know things may be different in spring, and it may come to the end of a season, right? Yeah, it all lines up very well while still being pretty diegetic, right? It's part of the game's world presents a reason for this built in, which is super cool because it's very easy for, I think, expanded play, West Marches play, all that kind of stuff to break verisimilitude very easily. You're presented with very like gamist sort of hacks or band-aids oftentimes. So it's very smart to include it in the actual core system's DNA, because it just helps immerse the players a little bit more, especially for when you have a couple hundred players in organized play. It just makes that community all the more immersed in the game system itself. So it's very cool stuff. Very cool indeed. So for those that don't know, I'm just come off being very sick, so I'm occasionally stifling like a cough here, and you may hear it in my voice. So those are would you say those are the key elements to your West Marches and expanded play? It would be, is that sort of from a rule standpoint the most core ones, or are there any others you'd like to unpack?
Yeah. So there's a lot of elements that here are the basic premises, and then when you then start to build off of them and understand things, that diegetic, the rules say this, so what does that mean in the world? It ends up supporting West Marches play a lot. And one of the ones that's big is there's oftentimes a question of why are we working together, right? If this is going to be kind of like Game of Thrones, why are we not all stabbing each other in the back all the time? Well, the answer is, for the mice, the enemy is always at the gate. And then we had this really interesting thing where we played, and so the campaign we just finished, which campaign 5, was the playtest campaign. We had 250 sessions over a year. And I ran every one of them. There were 4-ish hours long. So I was the only DM.
Yeah, working hard. Well, I mean, your handle is permanent DM.
It is what it is. Yeah. But one of the things was when we did one of the earlier playtests, we sped up the clock. Right. So we could go, and connecting the real world clock to the in-game clock is very important for West Marches play. A lot of people don't do that. And then they have all kinds of problems later. And they're like, oh, man, because it's almost impossible to turn the clock on after it's been off for a long time. It's just a giant headache. And so we sped up the clock for that game. And the idea, right, the meta narrative is you are going on an adventure because you want your house to get all of the really cool stuff so that when winter comes, you are best suited to survive the winter. Now, what that means is because you're mice and you're magical and you're running around, you're casting spells, you're talking, you have a culture, all of that is magic. When magic dies in the winter, you're a normal field mouse. You don't have language, you don't have culture, you don't understand tools for all of winter. So the players were like, how do we live? Yeah. Do we just say whoever dies? Well, they realized, well, what we need to do is we need to get a bunch of resources, and we put those resources someplace. And then we need to defend that place. Mm-hmm. And then we need to also defend it from outside things. And, it'd be really nice if we put some puzzles in here that were pretty easy to solve when we had intelligence, but we couldn't solve them as basic field mice.
What you're describing sounds familiar to me somehow, a familiar structure.
Yeah. And so the world just sort of birthed dungeons.
Yeah.
And then the very first iteration of things, they had this idea, and we had all these rules for how well your house would survive through the winter. And we had this beautiful moment where we said, well, okay, I understand why I need resources now. Why do we want to work together? Well, what happened was they go through things. They had one house that just refused to work with anyone else on longer scales. And then I described kind of what happened in the beginning of the new year. And I said, yes, it's wonderful. Your entire family survived. Actually, inside of your bunker, that was just your family, you notice that more than your entire family survived. There's a bunch of little pinkies, bunch of little children running around in the bunker. That's just you and your sisters.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah.
And so this thing was like,
Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay. We need to work together so that when the lights turn off and we don't understand that we shouldn't, do that.
Yeah.
We will take all of the men from this house and put them in this bunker, and all the women from this other house and put them in that bunker. So we need to share.
Engineering. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to fall out these things and create these bunkers that our animalistic mice characters can't get out of, but that we can manage when we have intelligence and all this sort of stuff. Right. And so the world just breeds this certain variety of dungeon that...
and it gives a really good justification for finding dungeons that would be, GM created, right? You'd come across failed houses who had tried to defend their stockpile, but, turn to cannibalism or whatever, dark story you want to tell. Because again, this game it is a story of death, right? It's a story of attempting to fight off death, but it is a story of death. So that is an in-fiction justification apart from just the world is old. Right, which is usually all that dungeons usually are. Yeah. World is old, moldy world building. This one is more immediate, indeed. And I've seen people in chat. And if anybody has any questions for me and Gary as we're going through this, feel free to ask them. Speaking of asking a question, Whispering Wisp, hey Wisp, asks, so is the main enemy in winter other mice? Or maybe let's shift gears slightly to talk about something I love talking about, which is monster design. So let's talk about the threats in the world, both from like a monster standpoint and hazards or environmental things. So tell us a little bit about that world and the evils that await the mice.
So I do want to answer the quick answer to that question real quick, which is you don't actually play through winter. Your characters are normal mice with no agency, with no intellect, with no decision-making powers that we can really translate through the game. So winter is not played through. So you don't need to worry about it. Now, can you have mice as enemies during the winter? Yes. Lots of other things are usually the enemies, because other things might realize, hey, there's like 30 mice in this little bucket. If I can get into that bucket, that's going to be a good day for a snake.
Yeah, good day for a snake.
So there's lots and lots of enemies. And the way that the game works and the way the magic system functions is that a mouse is right about the middle, the perfect spot for magic. If you get too much bigger, then they sort of like trail off down the intelligence scale to where they're now monstrous. So something the size of a deer isn't is too big to have intelligence from the magic system.
Right.
And a deer running through your area when you're a mouse, that's not a creature. That's like a tornado touching down, destroying stuff as it goes.
Yeah.
That's just not the scale it functions here. And then when you get too much smaller than a mouse, you get to something the size of an ant. You might have like ants and bees. They might have like a communal intelligence, but they won't have individual intelligence the same way, at least from the magic system. So you got lots and lots of different creatures, lots of enemies, lots of monsters. This game is, I call it an endemic Kentucky game. It is a game that is about being in Kentucky.
Yeah, where's that little map? So here we go. I'll put it up on the screen for the viewers.
A lot of the creatures are creatures in Kentucky. There's a one of the artworks in there that I really love is Kiss Cat the skink. It's a blue-tailed skink, which is a common 5-line skink that is in Kentucky.
And I've got that up on screen now for the viewers. Yeah, and the art is awesome, by the way.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Jesse Cabrera is the artist for all of our like high detail stuff. He does a phenomenal job. I'm so blessed to have him on the team. And one of the things that I really enjoy with the monsters specifically is blurring the line between why this creature is the way that it is because of magic or because that's actually how that creature works. We had some playtesters in Europe, and at least 2 of them at some point during the playtest came to me and said, hey, whoa, I actually looked up that creature. Its tail is that color. That's not a crazy magic thing. Like it actually does have a neon blue tail. And it's like, yeah, that is a thing. Or finding out like, oh, I thought one of the magical things in the system is that shrews are venomous. And then they were like, no, we figured out they are venomous. That's wild. And I love blurring that line.
Yeah, and the United States has a ton of biodiversity too. Well, and like what you're describing, if you rolled into a rural backyard in Kentucky, you'd find probably so much wildlife, but it'd be hard to find. Like you have to go beneath the grass, right down.
That's right.
It's not big. There's so many critters that you're going to find, and that's really cool because it's a fantasy story at the end of the day, but it's always good to ground aspects of fantasy in reality, right? You need grounding points, otherwise it feels too abstract. Which I think you were smart. You could walk into your hop in a car or go walk, and you could probably find a lot of these critters right in your area.
If you have the map that's on there, that map, like when the full game releases, there will be coordinates in the PDF that'll take you to the Google map that shows you where this is. Like this is a physical location you can get to. And on the map, there are a couple of these like big, like sort of campaign threat, like boss monster things that are on the map.
Yeah.
And one of them is a turtle called Bloodroot.
I see him here on the left part of the map.
And the reason that he's there in the campaign, in the world, on that spot on the map is because 2 times when I walked through that area, there was a turtle it's a snapping turtle.
It's a snapping turtle, right? Looks like one of those.
He's like 70 pounds. So if you guys don't know how big like a common snapping turtle or an alligator snapping turtle can get, a 70-pound turtle is huge, especially with how small the waterway is.
They'll take a good piece of your hand off. They will maim you.
So like there is a ridiculously big for the size of the creek. There's a turtle that chilled right there, and I saw him a couple of times, and I was like, well, he's a fixture there, so he's part of the world.
Yeah, I was talking to Scrat, who's in Tennessee, and so same deal. He's like, snapping turtles, man. He was telling me super scary. Which is great, and those watching Google like alligator snapping turtles, and with something that gives it scale. They are monsters. Absolutely monsters.
They look like dinosaurs.
Yeah,
they look
like crazy. Twice Dead. You may have heard one of Gary's kids. We heard a kid shouting in the background. He's got a little gaggle.
Yes.
That shouldn't be too disruptive, of course. Let me just catch up here on comments here. Oh, Dave. Dave Carroll hopped in. Hey, Backer32. Thanks, Dave, for supporting Gary. And Dave's a big supporter of my game and awesome community member and fellow indie designer. If you were transported into the world of D&D or all fantasy games and had to make your perfect character as yourself, what would you choose? Race, class, multi-class if you want, etc. You want it, you got it. That's a fun from Mark. Gary, you want to answer that one, or you want me to take that one first?
So My answer might be a little off because I think
I like
like
an
my
off answer.
mentality, I think kind of leans into Paladin. I very much want to believe that there is a core order to the universe and that I can follow this set of rules and good things will happen. Like that is a very
It's appealing.
calming thing.
Yeah.
That being said, I have found out that as I switch through different systems and as I think about the worlds, a lot of times when I go and I look at like a D&D or something near a D&D, I will look at a system and I will go, do you have a barbarian? And what does that mean in your system?
Mm-hmm.
What is this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And the version of barbarian that is in All Mice Die has become a big part of the way that I think about games. And I would want to be that style of barbarian, which is a mix of a bunch of different things. But the core element is the idea of the person who can bring the spirit into them, can interact with it, to have this sort of like in tune with nature thing. It is a sort of a mixture of like the 4th edition D&D barbarian, but also a little bit of the First Law trilogy barbarian. I mean, he's not really called a barbarian, but
I get you though.
But like, so there is all these ideas, right? But the idea of the connected with the spirit, the being able to inhabit this thing is just such an interesting thing to me. And I always search for connection. I'm a consummate extrovert, so.
Charisma barbarian.
Yeah, I think it would be a charisma barbarian. I think that's who I would be.
That's fun. Now, remind me, Gary. It's we've been talking for a while. Was the Get Barbaric thing our first like main interaction? Was that with you?
I don't think so. But now I'm excited. I don't know what that is.
Oh, so that was I did a it was one of my first community events with Zarek from Indominant. And we did a "What is a barbarian in your system" for other indie designers. This
I
is
didn't
like
even know
a
that
year
was
and a half ago.
I'm excited. I got to go.
Yeah, go look that up. It's a lot of fun to look through, as it's a bunch of weird systems, weird in a good way, of course, of different conceptualizations. There was like something like 40 submissions though, and we went through them on live, and everybody made like videos and blog posts, and it took like 7 hours of between 2 live streams. It was bad. We did a second one, which was
Death.
Necromancy. Yeah. It was a Death and Dying one. And then a couple community members have been running them in smaller scale ever since, every like quarter or so in my server. Anyway, that would have been really interesting, your take on the barbarian back then. That's what made me think of it. But my question, it's tough. If I'm just I'm gonna limit games wise here briefly, just to make it easier on myself, and just pick only like modern D&D concepts. Otherwise, it's too open. I would either be a mastermind rogue or some sort of sorcerer wizard multi-class, as I'm very high int and high charisma, and I just know that all my physical stats are mostly going to be dump no matter what. Like my con is in the floor. There's just no two ways about it. I survive on intelligence and looks. That's all I got. But the internals are ruined. But realistically, in a actual fantasy world, I would be toast. I'd be toast so fast. I also have very strong phobias of insects and arachnids, and those are the things that are always enormous in fantasy worlds. So I'm toast. I'm with you twice dead. Give me a hobbit hole to go hang out in. I'll be a hobbit and I'll go live in the Shire, and I'll live a peaceful life of mild laziness. Reading books and eating and getting annoyed at the neighbors. That sounds like a good life to me. Is this game in part designed for nature awareness? Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, were you specifically thinking about education as far as environments and ecosystems, or is that just a happy accident of your personal passion for the subject?
So it is a personal passion of myself. I reached out to some like local societies and things to kind of be like, hey, I would like to include resources to these interesting things. When you find these interesting animals, when you find these interesting pieces, to be able to do with it. And unfortunately, the best example, the best people to talk to locally are going through a bunch of like restructuring and like downsizing and all that sort of stuff. And so they just don't have time for kind of nonsense sounding requests. Because if I tell them I'm making a storytelling game that is about magical little creatures, and I want to make I want to raise awareness about some of these things, like there's a big barrier unless they already play D&D. It's a hard ask for them to figure out what the hell I'm talking about. But I do want to do that. That is something I'm passionate about. You know, I was a summer camp counselor. I was a director at a summer camp for a long time, and I always found that fun, to be able to just sneak a little bit learning in, and especially when the learning lines up with something that I go, oh, I can really use this in game. You know, finding out that like there's a crayfish that is local to Kentucky that is called the upland burrowing crayfish, and he's about yay big. And he digs holes that always have an odd number of entrances and exits. They're always half in the water table and half out of the water table, and they can be up to 9 feet deep. And I look at that and I go,
what?
And I go, that is insane.
Yeah, what
and also, as a dungeon master, you're telling me that there is basically an Umber Hulk.
Yeah.
There is this creature that
these deep, you know, partially submerged caverns
that also have a rule, that have a hard and fast rule that if you figure it out, you can also be able to understand how to explore what's in there. This is checking so many boxes.
And they're honestly gross looking. You know, zoom in on any of those sort of river critters and
if you've not seen what the upland burrowing crayfish looks like, it again looks fake. Like they're bright blue and bright red. Like
I'm not going to Google that because I think it will horrify me.
They're incredibly brightly colored things, and again, it looks like a fantasy creature, and that's just so fun to do, and so fun to be like, oh no, there is magic in our real world, right? Yeah. There's a lot of really cool things that we can find.
And you know, mice being the bottom of the not the bottom of the food chain, they are low on the food chain because mice are predators. A lot of them are. They do, you know, eat small things smaller than them. But there's so many things that eat mice. so many things.
And there's so many things that eat mice that people don't assume. Like we talked earlier about how like deer are like tornadoes. Deer will eat field mice.
Yeah, a deer will crunch that mouse.
Yeah, like there's so many things you're like, oh, that's an herbivore. And it's like, no, nature treats those rules as like suggestions. If they don't think they're going to get, you know, poisoned by eating that thing, calcium's calcium.
Yeah. Absolutely. Whispering whistle. I think I know why there's no Loco Lobster in TFE now. One of the last pieces of art is for the giant mutated scorpion. I'm not looking forward to it.
Oh, the one that you showed me, there was one that had very scrabbling monster thing. You showed me the ones that were like the
with all the eyes and
all the eyes. Yeah,
the Kilkenny cat, as that thing's called. That thing doesn't trigger my phobias because it doesn't look like an insect.
Oh, it doesn't look enough like an insect.
It doesn't look like an arthropod to me.
Okay.
Phobias are really. I'm not going to derail this too much with discussion about phobias, but when you have phobias, they often, when you drift away from realness, it subsides. So if something looks sufficiently sci-fi or fantasy, it starts to move away from something that causes me abject horror.
So what you're telling me is, if you play in my game, we cannot play through the emergence.
So here's the thing, though. I can play in a story featuring any of this.
That's good.
Because I like horror, though. I like horror. It's visual representations. I cannot look at a picture or any image of a cockroach. I can't. I have to look away. It starts filling me with fight or flight. That's how strong it is. It's fascinating. Like it's an image. I have to see it. But you know, when I'm playing D&D, we encounter rot grubs and all sorts of horrible stuff. I design monsters too that like. I don't look forward to the art. Some of the last pieces of art are all things that I think I'm going to be disgusted by in the best way.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, you know, like that's what we do. We draw on our fears. But yeah, I could play in a story about, you know, these river crustaceans and going into their lair and fighting them, as long as you don't hold up a giant picture of it and, you know, force it on me, right? Like a little picture. Okay, I can look away from that. Or like I can look at ants. Ants are fine for some reason. Maybe just, I don't want to see a really zoomed in microscopic picture of them. That would disturb me. But anyway, phobias are weird. They're not based on logic, right? Phobias are a miswiring in the brain that are not grounded in sense. Anyway, leaving phobias aside, oh, is the Drider? Driders I can usually look at. I'm playing in. We're in the Demon Web pits right now, actually, in the D&D game I'm playing in. And there's tons of spider monsters, and we've got all sorts of spider minis. Most of them are sufficiently sci-fi. Some of them I will not touch with my bare hand because I can't bring myself to physically touch the miniature that looks too much like a real spider. Anyway, let's leave that aside for a moment. Well, that's kind of circling back to that. This is a game about mice, but it is not a cozy game. There will be horrifying elements to it. Monsters that kill the mice, dismember them. Is there some sort of system, like a wound system or anything in your game? Let's maybe talk about the actual underlying moment-to-moment gameplay a little bit.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with something like D20 Fantasy, there's going to be a lot of broad strokes that you're gonna see, right? You're one of the things that does it's easy for people to translate to, but does take them a moment, is the fact that you want to hit something, you know the target number, and it's never hidden. You know the target number that you're going for. You roll a d20, you add some numbers, you get it, good. And there's some extra rules in there, but that's going to get you started. Then what a lot of people first time kind of hiccup with, but then once they kind of realize why we're doing it this way, it clicks pretty quickly, is the players are the ones making basically all of the rolls. So if you roll to attack, you are rolling against that monster's defenses. If the monster attacks you, you get a number and you need to roll to beat that number. Or you need to get out of the way.
Does the GM roll at all? Or is this a GM no roll system?
The GM rolls very rarely. Usually if the GM is rolling, something has gone catastrophically wrong. Nice. The most common GM roll is the GM rolls for damage, because the players viscerally hate rolling damage on themselves.
Yeah. That feels bad.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that this is the way it is, again, I played a ton of D&D, and the idea that, I burn this resource, I use a spell slot or whatever, that's not how it works in my system, but you burn a resource like a spell, I'm going to charm this guy, and the DM rolls a 19 and your spell does nothing. And is it mathematically different if the DM rolls a 19 versus you rolled a 2? No, it's the same thing. Yeah. But it feels different. It feels like I owned that low roll versus, oh man, the DM's on fire tonight, and I don't have any say over that. Even though you also don't have any say over your roll. But
yeah, the psychology of that experience is different. The experiential aspect of that design is different, right? Because we don't. You don't want to design a rule system without thinking about the experience at the table, because, like you said, they're mathematically identical. It doesn't matter who picked up the D20, right? And like in the end, you can make them, they're mathematically identical, but the experience is different. And so it's smart to take that into account when designing a game. And using a chassis like D20 rollover is it's useful. Because also when you're designing games for people to jump in and jump out, for people who can jump in easily and maybe haven't played much apart from D&D, it also means they could jump in pretty fast, right? Because you're using well-established, consistent structures there, right?
Right. Yeah. And the other sort of the other sort of big piece of the way that this ends up playing out is that there are a lot of recommendations in the rules to promote those types of mentalities. So if you're familiar with something like D&D, the help action, if you've played 5e, it basically never gets used because it's garbage. Like you can find some narrative reasons to maybe try to help somebody, but if you're trying to kind of pick the best thing to do in your turn, it's really never going to be help. In All My Die, aid and hinder are a big part of it. And the reason I bring that up is when you do aid someone or when you do hinder someone, which is the mechanical benefit of advantage, disadvantage with a little bit of difference, the recommendation says if you empower somebody else, you should ask them to either denote which D20 is the one that is the one they're rolling because you gave it to them, or if you're okay with it, to give them your D20. And the rules say that because what we found is through play, the characters that play the leadership characters, the support characters, the game is designed on these 3 pillars of play: leadership, combat, and utility. And when you play the leadership characters and they're really, really good at making everybody else better at whatever they're doing, the amount of ownership that leadership player has for, oh, that's my purple die.
I gave you that crit, right? Yeah.
And it's beautiful because, especially when it's roll twice, take the higher, what we noticed was when the roll from the warlord was a 3, nobody said anything and there were no bad feelings. When the second roll was a 20, it was all positive. So it was like, well, it's not, you never feel bad when it's a low roll.
Yeah.
But you always
got the low roll out of the way.
Exactly.
Is the bizarre logic that we all think.
Right. It's however that mentality gets, but it does mean, and this game is very explicitly about making other people good at what you're doing, right? Yeah. If you're in a scene where, you're level 1, God forbid you get into a combat, it's probably not a good idea. But if you do, and you have a combat character with you, you have one of the combat classes with you, you want to pump your stuff into those guys because this is their wheelhouse. They're going to be, the fighter is going to be astronomically better at the fight than the characters that are not combat characters. Yeah. And if the warlord goes up and smacks them with their stick versus the warlord empowering the fighter to go and do something, it is going to be something that they'll learn. You learn really quickly when you play. Oh yeah, if I have my kind of role that I fulfill, and then depending on what type of scene you're in, you're always sort of shuffling that triangle of who's in the spotlight.
Right. And we didn't mention this earlier about your system, but it now came up emergently, is that it is not a system that has tacked on like exploration and these other pillars as an afterthought. Right? It is not combat is not the solely supported pillar in this game. Much of it is about, and this adventure is about travel. It is about exploration and resource gathering and that aspect of play rather than just a series of fights sequenced together, right? Sorry, clearing my throat. So those sort of characters who are combatants do get their spotlight, but it's not every scene. It's not intended that the combat characters are always useful and only sometimes the support characters or the utility characters, right? Yeah, which is a good way to do it for a game that is about resource acquisition, that long-term and such,
And exploration being the pillar of play is important in the game rules, like for the main rules, but is also important for this one. One of the things that I noticed that I'm going to have to find a way to say in exactly the right way in the actual rules itself. Because I have a section in here in the current document for this that, it works fine, but I can always tweak it to make it a little bit better, where I talk about how if you play in a one shot that you grab something off of itch, or you get like, just a little one shot adventure you pick up from someplace, there is an expectation that we start off from here, we go and do some things, we accomplish a task, we go and we do whatever else, right? If you're traveling someplace, I know I've seen a couple of times you have an adventure where you're crossing a river and and the river crossing, but there is this sort of built-in narrative, and there is a very clear sort of pass-fail for the overall adventure, and that is oftentimes a big piece of whether we succeeded or failed is whether the overall narrative succeeded. And in this adventure, if you play it, what we say is, if you came home alive with some sort of loot, you succeeded. If you don't complete the main objective, that is perfectly fine, because going out into the world, finding some random stuff, getting completely distracted and doing that for the whole session, and then coming back to town and being like, we didn't accomplish the mission, but we still want to do it. We're going to go back out and do it again. That is how you play West Marches. That is how that game happens. Like that is the game. So you're not failing if that's what happens in your session. You're doing it the right way. And on the Kickstarter, there's a link to I ran it for Shadows of Archonia. We played it with them, and they did not accomplish the mission, but that was fine. They still had fun. They still got some stuff done. They got progress made. And there was this thing, they made a deal with an evil weasel. And like, if it was a long-term campaign, that was going to come back and bite them in the butt in more ways than one. And it was going to be beautiful. And that's the idea, right? You go out into this very densely packed world, and you go and you find stuff to do. Because in West Marches, you have to be the one that says, I have a goal. I'm going to grab 3 other people and say that they agree that we should go do this goal, and then you schedule a session. So you can't just show up to D&D night and expect to do something. If you don't have goals, you don't play. And this adventure is designed to kind of say, all right, well, how do you get your players to have goals? Well, you throw them into a place where there's crazy stuff going on, and they'll get attached to something. They'll either get attached to something because they find it and it's cool, or they get attached to something because, like, man, that killed like 3 people. We are going to hunt that thing down.
Yeah,
we're
put a
find
stop to
some way
that.
to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the product here is a really good indication of now we don't have the full. I've seen full mock-ups. We've talked, Gary, and the structure of this adventure. You can kind of see the preview here. I have it up on the screen. It's a little small on the page right now, but it provides a point crawl with tons of in and out paths and things to do, and each then point has its own spread to unpack all the activities that could happen there, challenges, foes, and what have you. And it's just really a tool, right? It's built. This kind of circles back to what we said at the start, is that you're making your game and this adventure not in abstraction, but from many hard-earned hours, thousands of hours of actually running games for people, especially people who you may not know when you first sit down, right, in organized play. So having a booklet that is a tool that you can actually use with no prep or little prep, sit down and run it, right, is it's a very good product. I'll say for that. Like when you showed me your adventure like layouts earlier, they were very early still. I'm like, yeah, I could just grab that and run something with that. It looks really easy to do.
One of the best pieces of feedback that we got, because I have several DMs, people that played in the playtest that ran the adventure, that ran the mock-ups with the really janky sidebars and stuff that wasn't working right. But like one of the best pieces of feedback I got from someone who had never played the game, right? His first experience with this game was running this module.
Nice.
His thing was, I didn't feel like you gave me an adventure to run. He said, this felt like I was running my own notes.
Nice. That's a good compliment.
And I was like, I'm done.
Pack it up. Pack it up.
And I was like, that's the whole goal, right? I want you to be, and the format of the book, right? You've got a 2-page spread for each area. It tells you all the stuff in it, gives you all the stat blocks that you need. But one of the things that I always find is the like super stripped down like OSR stuff that does that. Oftentimes the complaint that people have, which is a very reasonable, normal complaint, is to say, well, it's all on the page, but there's not enough of it for me to be able to know what's going on. And so what we did is we have links to anything that was like, hey, this could have a lot of extra support for it if you have lots of other questions about what's going on here. And then in the back, there's a further reading. So if you're the type of DM that can just run it straight up, great. If you're the type of DM that's like, ooh, we have this thing, I don't really know who this guy is. Hang on, give me a second, flip back. Here is a one column entry of this is what the guy wants, this is what he needs, this is what he's willing to give to the group. Okay, flip back. Now we know we're ready to go. You can have both of those pieces.
Yeah. That's very much making one of the things a lot of people don't realize who haven't written adventures is adventure writing isn't prose. It's game design. Adventure writing is game design. You are making a tool. It is a system unto itself, not a story, right? You're not writing out what will happen. You're writing out situations and tools that arm the GM to help create the emergent story at the table with the players, right?
Right.
And that's a big shock to the system for those that have just like run sessions themselves, right? If you're just only running sessions yourself and playing your homebrew world and you prep storylines for your friends, it's very different from handing something to a stranger and saying, do what I do, right? Here's a method to do that. I think I missed a question. Twice Dead Mage says, may I ask if grand power moves by different houses against each other are part of the game? So like Game of Thrones, like do the houses get into conflict with each other and unseat them or take them out? Is that part of the gameplay? I know you were saying there is a big reason to cooperate, but is there rules for PvP, I guess, from a house
Yeah,
level.
so there are rules for I mean, for PvP strictly between the houses, not really, but for that type of power moves against each other, 100%. And those are the rules for the resolution of winter. Those are the rules for the resolution of the ending of a season and the beginning of a new age, or the beginning of a new season. You probably don't want to use those rules for the beginning of a new age, but like you can use these tools because again, the goal is to try to set yourself up to be the one that's there. And there is a structure in the game that you have by default some number of great houses, which are the sort of ruling families. Think of like your Starks and your Lannisters and things like that. And then you have your middle houses, which are your like guilds and merchant things. They have specialties and things. Those are NPC houses. And then you have the aspirant houses, the houses that oftentimes have mice and a name, and they don't have a lot of like resources. They have desire, they have ambition, and those are the player character houses. So at the beginning of every season, the player character houses are by default sort of the least of the noble families as far as like the social hierarchy goes, and you have all these NPC houses that are stronger at home, and they will play off of each other and sort of make decisions, and you can do stuff with it. And there's a system, because again, this is West Marches. One of the big things is not everyone's going to have the same amount of time to play. Mm-hmm. Some people can make your periodic 4-hour sessions, and some people just do not have the way to do that. And when I ran the big playtest campaign, there were 3 great houses, and there were 3 secondary houses, tier 2 houses. And I had people that I knew that were playing those 6 houses. They couldn't sit down for 4 hours and play with us. They just didn't have the time, but they could be in a group chat.
Right.
And
make those macro decisions. Yeah,
make a big macro decision. And what you'll find out is if community is the name of the game, which it is in West Marches, giving people more ability to interact with the community on different levels just means you have a healthier, more vibrant community. And I think that's very. And one of the players that is the iconic wizard Harland, the person who played that. He is very unlikely to have time to play next year. So he came back and said, hey, I really want to play. I want to play one of the great houses because I don't have that much time to play. And that gives me a good way to
they can do the async play, basically.
Correct.
By doing that. That's very cool. And we're just about coming to the end of our stream here. I knew we'd blow through it real fast, Gary. easily. So I'm just going to reiterate a few things about the campaign for those that maybe came in late. So Gary has a product currently on Kickstarter. It funded today in its first day, which is awesome. So now we're going to see if we can hit a couple stretch goals. It is called Magic Reborn, All Mice Must Die, a TTRPG quick start. So this is a capsule experience for the game that is in development. Well, it's already been developed. It's playable and fully developed. But this is a way for you to have pre-gens, an adventure, the rules to run that adventure, all in a very streamlined and user-friendly product. But the exciting part of it is it gives you an entry ticket, as it were, to join in on Gary's very large West Marches campaigns that he runs with his community. He's probably the most experienced community like RPG runner I've interacted with, I think. Apart from like the guys at my local Los Angeles convention that run the huge adventure leagues here. These may be the only people that would have you beat just because of the sheer volume in Los Angeles. But so there's going to be a campaign that is going to start at the end of summer, and it's going to be with the rules of the game, which will then be coming shortly thereafter, right? You want to maybe talk briefly about that, and we'll end on that note. When will the full game system be coming out?
Yeah, so the full game system will be coming out at the end of that campaign. We'll do the crowdfunding once the campaign that starts this summer. You'll get to play with the rules and go along, and then we get to the end. Now, one thing that'll make a little bit more sense to some people is we talked earlier about exploration is the pillar of play. That's not just in the game, that is in the rules as well.
Yeah.
So when we start playing at the end of the summer, there's only going to be 6 classes that are playable. Those are the 6 base classes, and there'll be quests to do the starting quest to kind of unlock some of the other classes. Because in your standard D&D game, it doesn't make sense to unlock a class and have your character, your fighter that's had this really awesome story for forever, and then they suddenly decide, oh, I'm going to be a warlock. That doesn't make any sense. But when you're running a house and you can say, oh, no, I'm keep my fighter, but we just unlocked the warlock, and now my little brother is going to become a warlock, so I now have a warlock to play. That means something different. And there's nothing more cathartic when you play the main campaign than completing the thing of being able to recruit that concept, right? The concept of being able to make a pact with a greater entity for a warlock, and make that a player option for the whole table, where the DM gets to pick up the rule book in the middle of the table, clip open the rule book, slide the pages for the warlock class into the rule book, and be like, bam, now the warlock is in the rules and playable, and you get to explore all those pieces. And so if you play in the campaign, you'll get to explore slowly. Here's a giant book with all this stuff to read. No. You're a little bit to read.
Yeah.
And then you get to explore as you go and slowly add to your repertoire. And once you've got this big repertoire, then we start crowdfunding for the full game. And you can say, okay, now I can see sort of the full breadth by exploring it, by experiencing, rather than just sitting down to read a giant book.
Right. Yeah, that's very cool. Oh, and Flash Shaman, there is a game that was recorded on the Kickstarter page. If you want to see, Gary ran one. Because you're being asked, will you do live plays of it or actual plays? So yeah, I'm sure there will be further either live or recorded content of
there will be live plays. There will be recorded content. We're going to be at Gen Con where we're going to be running games.
I will get a picture with Gary in person. I will track him down.
Yes. And the only other little thing, because I know we've got right at the end of time, someone asked me, because they are watching this, but they sent me a message in Discord.
Oh.
I don't know why. Corey, I don't know why you didn't message me. I don't know why you're not in his chat. I don't know if your chat has rules, but whatever. The thing I was that he asked about is saying, hey, you might want to tell them what the icon thing is. So for some people, the way the icon works is weird. But it is just meant to be for, if you really want to put yourself into the game, there are 2 ways to do it.
Oh, right.
You can help us fund the art, and you can back at the icon level, where you get to say, I want the rogue in the rulebook to be my character, and I want to sit down with your artist, and I want to make a really cool mouse rogue, and I have this idea, and I want to put it in the rulebook. You can back at that thing. Or it's a hefty price tag, because you're helping pay for the art. Or if you don't want to do that, or it's outside of your price range and you do want to do that, if you play in the campaign, if you want to get the rogue, the first person to make it to level 10, which is sort of the end, the beginning of the end for the characters, if you make it to level 10 on a rogue, you get that anyways. That is the reward for being the first person. So the character that's on there, when you look at the 100% human made, right? You get to see the progression of our artist who took the character Harland, the iconic wizard. Someone played wizard, they made it to level 10, and then they sat down with our artist and they sketched it out, did a couple of options, and then they finally fully fleshed out as this really cool wizard thing that is Harland, right? That is his iconic character, and that is the wizard.
It's
Harland.
So cool. Yeah, so there's a couple super tiers on the Kickstarter page, at super tiers, we would say. And I think we talked about this, Gary, but I did something like that too, and I loved it, and the community had a really strong appreciation for it. It's so cool when a member of the community inserts their own original character into the book, and there it is. There's their art that got commissioned for them. I think that's so fun, and it's a blast to work with a community on. We ended up doing that for the backstory elements mainly for mine, where
I got to see some of them.
Yeah, awesome. I don't know if Dave Carroll's still in the chat somewhere in here, but his character, I think his is for Frontiersman, might be his original character. So his character is in the book. It's just super cool. So yeah, if you want to get involved at that financial level, definitely check out the super tiers, or just get really involved in Gary's community and in playing the games. And maybe you if you have the skills, if you could survive and play and get to level 10, you could also be involved in that way. I mean, shockingly, Gary's very community minded. What a surprise. Yeah. So anyway, that is Gary's game. The game is All Mice Die, and this crowdfunder is for a capsule game, an adventure, pre-gens, guidance to run it all, that is acting as like the preview and segueing into a even larger product down the road. But it is all like done. Like the game is all playable. This isn't a dream of a game. You could like play it now.
I mean, the little tagline for the full game, it's there's 7 base classes, 7 advanced classes, 7 prestige classes, 7 heirloom classes. There's 28 classes. There's 296 spells with each that have 4 ranks. So there's over 800 spells and spell effects that you can get. There's hundreds of potions. There's a ton of content here. There's a template monster system where you can say, oh, I want to have a bullfrog, but I want this bullfrog to have these ideals, and that will change their template.
Nice.
Oh, but I want it to be a boss bullfrog with those ideas, and it'll change the template. So you can sort of surprise yourself when you're running into a random boss bullfrog monster that you didn't know was going to be arrogant and daring and reckless. Oh my God. And he's in the lead. Wow, this guy is a monster. Do not get in melee with this thing. And it's fun to do for the full game.
So very cool stuff. Well, thank you, Gary, for coming on here and talking with me. We talk all the time, so it's kind of funny to do it in a more formal sense. And we'll definitely have to get you back on, especially when you're ready to move into the second crowdfunder down the road. But very cool stuff. Gary's also very active in my server and in a number of servers. So if you have more questions for him, hit him up in the TFE server. He's around. He's around for sure.
Feel free to ping me at permanent DM in the TFE server. Happy to answer whatever questions people have. My whole game is designed around community is the thing that matters. So I'm contactable. You can find me wherever you need to find me.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We're going to end it here, and hope you all have a good rest of your night.